after Zoom, I hear that you're going to be the one there helping me that day.
Oh yeah, I'm the sole person that day, so
I'm terrified, actually.
okay, well I don't know how Torah, but
19 years, okay.
okay, yeah.
Okay, fine. I was glad when I heard that.
I'll look at it next time. Yeah, it's exciting. And you're sharing it this year with
which is nice. So we study every day or twice a week.
Your study with Meryl?
Well, we go on Zoom and we sing together so that we each get our own in.
Oh, for the thing on the, oh, it's so great for the 9th. Is it during when I'm away, right?
yeah.
No, it's the 26th. It's the
26th is 2 weeks.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sad to miss it, but it'll be great. It'll be great. Good Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to get started, and welcome to everyone who's joining us on Zoom. If we could see the whole gallery view, then we can see our community a little bit better. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to begin our service this morning with the words that are going to be in the chat, or they're on page 138 in our Siddur. Pasted in, Hareini Mekabelet Alai. We take upon ourselves the mitzvah of loving our neighbors as ourselves.
Hareini mekabelet alai et mitzvat haborei ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha l'reacha kamocha Hareini mekabelet alai et mitzvat haborei ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha l'reacha kamocha Hareini mekabelet alai et mitzvat haborei ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha l'reacha kamocha.
I'd like to take everyone an opportunity to invite everyone to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out. Feel your breath expand, contract. The prayers of the morning are meant to help us wake up, even if we have already woken up. Help us to wake up to this moment, to this day, and to recognize that we could have not been here this morning, but we wake up with a sense that life is a gift, that this moment is a gift. Elohai neshama shanatata bi tahora hi. The soul that you have placed within me is good, it is pure. At the very heart of who I am, leaving behind all of the fragility, all of the ego, all of the stress and anxiety. At the very base, it is goodness and love. And we just want to reconnect to that part of ourselves. We can feel that inner light and bring it forward into the world. Blessed are you who gives these souls that are in your keeping. We give thanks for the gift of our bodies, for the very fact that they worked well enough to get us here this morning, whether on Zoom or in person, that All the openings that needed to be opened were open. All of the closings that needed to be closed were closed. That we have the ability to offer praise and thanksgiving in community. Blessed are you, giver of these bodies, healer of all flesh. We turn in our prayer books to page 209. For a psalm, it is good to give thanks, it is good to give praise, it is good to acknowledge the greatness of the one.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת. טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, אמונתך בלילות. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, אמונתך בלילות. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la la. Ya la 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 la, ya la ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la, ya la la. Allah la 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 la, ya la ya la ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la ya la ya la 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 la. Alei asur velavel, alei gayom v'sinot yisrael. Magalu b'afecha, v'odom kumach shavotzecha, yisrael. צדיקה תמר יפרח, כארז בבנום יזכה, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצר אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד ילבול בשיבה, בשלים ורעלים יהיו. להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולת בו. יה לה לה לה, יה לה 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 לה, יה לה לה לה, יה לה לה. יה לה 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 לה, צורי ולא עוולת בו.
On this Shabbat of Sojac Shabbat, we want to lift up from our Psalms some words of love and justice. So I invite you to turn to your handout. And if you don't have any, we can get someone to bring some in. The handout at the top and the front page where it says, Olam Chesed Yibaneh, we will build this world with love. Please join us, and the words should be in the chat as well.
Chesed yibaneh, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. Olam chesed yibaneh, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. Olam chesed chesed yibale. Ya la 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 la. Olam chesed yibale. Ya la 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 ya la la la. I will build this world from love. Ya la 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 ya la la la. And you must build this world from love. Ya la 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 ya la la la. And if we build this world from love, ya la 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 la, then God will build this world from love. Ya la la ya la ya la la la. Olam chesed yibale. Ya la la ya la ya la la la. Olam chesed yibale. Ya la la ya la ya la la la. Olam chesed yibale. Ya la 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 la. Olam chesed yibale. Ya la 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 ya la la la. I will build this world from love. Ya la 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 ya la la la. And you must build this world from love. Ya la 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 ya la la la. And if we build this world from love, ya la 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 la, then God will build this world from love. Ya la 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 ya la la la.
Page 247 or page 40, please rise and body your spirit for the Baruch Hu, the call to communal prayer.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer or uvorech choshech Oseh shalom uvorech et hakol.
You can be seated. Hakol yodecha v'akol. Ha'me'ir la'aretz adonai melecha b'rachamim v'chol ha'tzon.
Efes piltecha go'aleinu limot haMashiach ve'en b'mechalot Moshienu l'chayei olamim.
Page 253 or 255 and page 45.
El Adon al kol ha'ma'asim baruch u'mvorach b'fika neshama gadlo v'tuvo malei olam da'at u'tfula sovevim oto המתגאה על חיות הקודש נדע בכבוד על המרכבה זכות ומשול לפני כיסו chesed v'rachamim lifnei chevodo. Tovim me'orot shebara Eloheinu, saram bedat bevina uvhaskel. Koach ugvura natan bahem lihiot moshlim bekerev tevel. Meleim eziv umefikim noga na'ezivam bechol ha'olam. Smechim betzetam besasim bevoam. Osim be'emar etzol kohonam. Pe'er v'chavod notnim lishmo sahala verina v'zecher malchuto. Kara l'shemesh v'yizrach or ra'a v'hikin surat halvala. Shevach notnim lo koseva marom tif eret ugedula srafin be'ofanim bechayot hakodesh. Ay ay la 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 ay la 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 la. Ay la ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ay la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ay la ya la 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 la.
Invite Claudia up to share with us the reading that's on the first page of your handout or in the chat as well.
Shoulders by Naomi Shihab Nye. A man crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him, no car drive too near to his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo, but he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say fragile, handle with care. His ear fills up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide. The rain will never stop falling.
Page 269, we begin the Khatimah with 3 lines down, the middle of the line, Borei Refuot, through the rest of the page. Let a new light shine forever on Zion.
Borei Refuot Nora Tehilot Adon Haniflaot. Borei Refuot Nora Tehilot Adon Haniflaot. Amechalesh betuvo bechayom tamid. Vase ציון תאיר, ונזכחו לה במהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאורות.
Amen. As we move to the Ahava Rabbah prayer in 273, which we'll dive into ourselves, we remember King's words, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot draw out hate, only love, Ahava, can do that. 273 to ourselves. We'll join at the end on 275.
Ahava rabbah ahavtanu.
Cause us to clean your hearts.
אבינו לשלום, מהבא כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קומיות ליעצנו. כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, וקרבתנו לשמך ונוסלה באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. And those of you on Zoom who would like to unmute to say the Shema together as one.
Double.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, ושרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Continue silently and we'll say together the last paragraphs of the Amidah, of the Ahava Rabbah. Shema. Haya'im Shemoah Tishma B'Kol. Page 285. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta alehem, v'yasu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei bigdeihem ledorotam, v'natanu al tzitzit hakanaf patil techelet, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני
אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
And this week's Torah portion is Kitisa, and it's the parsha that is most famous for the building of the golden calf, the greatest possible sin that the Israelites, well, it's debatable, but one of the greatest sins, if not the greatest sin of the Israelites in the desert. And I've been thinking and meditating this week on, exactly what about this building the golden calf was so deeply troubling to Moses and God. I mean, there's what's obvious. But what was the most upsetting part? Was it the fact that it was idol worship? Was it the fact that these impatient Israelites lost faith so easily, lost trust so easily just after being, fully cared for and taken care of and moved through the sea? And something I've been thinking about this week is perhaps the greatest problem or part of this situation that happened, this terrible thing that happened, and the greatest, most awful part about it is the way in which the Israelites, in a period of uncertainty, sought convenient and easy solutions. They were not able to stay in the discomfort of not knowing. They were not able to stay in the experience of fear and let it be. And instead, they grabbed onto what was the easiest, most obvious, most simple solution. Instead of bringing God towards them, they pushed God away. They pushed holiness away. So as we turn to the prayer of redemption, the Micha Mocha, the prayer that was sung by our ancestors that expresses and acknowledges a redemption that is past, but also a redemption that we hope for and long for and want so desperately in our broken world. I want to invite us to consider and making sure, and I think we do this, but to spread this Torah in the world, that it is so vital for us not to settle for easy answers or easy solutions of what is just in front of us, but to truly do the work, to sit in the discomfort and to struggle and to talk and to think and to figure out what is the best solution to building our world and building our society. So let us sing this song of redemption, knowing that redemption is not yet come, knowing that we are very far, but committing ourselves to do the difficult work that will take to get there and for our future generations to get there. Page 291, Micha Mocha.
תהילות לאל עליון, ברוך ומבורך. משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכהנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ויאמרו כולם. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. שיר החדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, יפודה חינומך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, כראש ישראל. Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
Turn to page 295 or 67 in the PDF and begin the Amidah together, and then we'll continue with our own words or the words in the book silently for the rest of the Amidah. When you're done with your personal private prayer, you can be seated. Page 295.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gitehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gitehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imot, U'mevii Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Rav leHoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechakel chayim bechesed. Mechaye kol chai berachamim rabim. Somech noflim ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות כל חי. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה כל חי. Page 303. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב ביד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, עדי וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים למצרפים, ליומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשקול, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Shalom, 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 shalom. 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 Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's so amazing to see so many people in person and to see our Zoom community. We're so blessed. I'd love to invite you to just say hi to someone near you, or if you're on Zoom, to open and unmute and welcome and say hello.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Good
Hello,
Shabbat
everybody.
everyone.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos, David. Good
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Ruth. Good Shabbos, Dan.
Yes.
Good Shabbos, Shell. Good Shabbos, Athena.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, Shelley.
Hi, Phyllis.
Good Shabbos, Sandra.
Good Shabbos. Here.
Good Shabbos, Kate.
Marilyn.
Thank you, David.
Good
Good
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
David, I've got to tell you some very interesting news. I'll DM you about it.
Okay. Excited.
What's that?
We begin our Torah service on page 385. We invite Danielle Gerard and Nancy Ludmer to come forward to help us open the Ark and take out the Torah. Please rise.
ויהי בנשוא אהרון, ויאמר משה, קומה אדוני, ויפוצו אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך, כי מציון תצא תורה. תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו.
Page 393.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Shema
Yisrael.
Adonai
Eloheinu. Adonai
אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
גדלו לאדוני איתי ונרוממה שמו יחדיו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להקדשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להקדשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Rovevu. Ay la la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ay ya la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ay la, la la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. La la, ay la la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la la.
Thank you, Daniel. You can be seated. Okay, Shabbat Shalom again. How are you? Shabbat Shalom. This parsha is full of incredible stories. It begins, as Nancy so beautifully talked about in the Tish, with a census. And then things go a little awry from there with the building of the golden calf and the reaction and response of Moses and God, who are, of course, quite angry, at least so the text seems to indicate, and some midrash sometimes changes that meaning. And towards the end of the parsha, which is where we jump in the third triennial reading, we begin to see a reconciliation, a healing, and a re-covenant, a covenant reestablished, new tablets written. And in the midst of that, Moses, who is both humble and full of chutzpah at the same time, asks to see God's presence, to see the divine presence, as if it's not enough that Moses got 40 days on the mountain. He wants to see God's presence. And God, as one of the most mysterious passages in all of Torah, God appears to Moses, but only in the back, and releases and shares this formula of what comes to be the 13 attributes in our tradition, the divine attributes of compassion and love and forgiveness, as well as the Torah version, some pretty hefty scooping of revenge as well. So we get to read this section of the Torah this morning. Our first, let me do this first, but then we'll call 5 special individuals and groups for our Aliot. V'yazor v'yagim v'yoshia l'chol hasim bo v'nomar amen hakol havu godel Eloheinu tuvot kavod laTorah na la'amod zev ben Shmuel v'Sara l'aliyah harishona baruch shenatan Torah li'amo Yisrael b'kedushato v'atem madbikim b'Adonai Elohechem chayim kolchem hayom. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much. In the Eitz Chaim, we are on page 538, and there should be a link in the chat to the Sepharia section of where we are. We are at Exodus 33, verse 12. 33, verse 12, and that goes to verse 16.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai Hambara Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirvanu lavodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Oh God, you know it.
Amen.
Can we have Myra, would you come and hold the Torah? Is that okay? I have to do your checking.
Little juggling, so I use this microphone and this hand for my yad, so we'll, and seeing it at an angle with my glasses, trifocals, but let's give it a try. Ready? Amen. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai, Re'eh ata omer elai ha'al et ha'am hazeh, v'ata lo hodatani et asher tishlachini, v'ata amarta yedaticha v'shem, v'gam matzata chen b'nai. V'ata imna matzati chen b'necha, hodieni na et derachecha, ve'eda'acha lema'an emtza chen b'necha, ure'ei ki amcha hagoy hazeh, vayomar panay elechu v'hanichoti lach, vayomer elav imein panecha holchim, al ta'alenu mizeh. ובמה יוודע אפוא, כי מצאתיכם בעיניך אני ויעמך, הלא בלכתך עמנו, ונפלינו אני ויעמך, נפלינו אני ועמך מכל העם אשר על פני האדמה. Kiss it again.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat hamet v'hayei olam nata betohenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. First, I want to introduce Carlin to the SAJ community. Carlin and Ilana are, Ilana is Mike and Sue Beller's daughter, and fiance. Carlin is Ilana's fiance. I'm getting this right, correct? And Ilana and Carlin have participated online at SAJ over the pandemic. So they have been part of our community, but you haven't seen them in person. And it just so happens that a huge thing happened yesterday, which is that the Jewish people became expanded beautifully by the presence of Carlin in his conversion to Judaism. And we welcome you into the covenant this Shabbat. So I am so excited to offer this blessing for you, and I urge everyone to get to know Ilana and Carlin to the degree you can today and in other moments, and hopefully they can come back before their wedding and celebrate with us as well. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless you, Carlin, who have risen today in honor of Shabbat, in honor of community, and in honor of formally joining the Jewish people, and in honor of your new Hebrew name, Zev ben Shmuel Basara. Shmuel coming from your family origin of Jewish roots. May you be blessed today to feel held by this community and by the entire Jewish people. May you be blessed to feel that you have found a home in which you can practice meaningfully and find rituals that animate your life and give more purpose and direction and meaning into your days. May you continue to learn, to explore, to find new practices and rituals that speak to you, but also to begin to find your voice to teach and be a contributor to the Jewish people, as we know you can be. May you be blessed on the occasion of your formally joining the Jewish community to find happiness and success blessing, abundant joy, and along with all of your family and the whole Jewish people and beyond. And let us say, Amen. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov and Mazel tov and Simon tov and Mazel tov and Mazel tov and Simon tov. Yehelanu, 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 Uvecha Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvecha Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvecha Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvecha Yisrael. Mazel tov.
Okay, woohoo. We continue in our Torah reading with verse 17, which is now on the next page, 539. We call for this aliyah, the mishpacha over there, Sue, Mike, and Alana, so please come forward for the second aliyah, Na'ala Amo, the aliyah Hashenit. Verse 17. Baruch Adonai Hambarak Leolam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
So Carla.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, גם את הדבר הזה אשר דיברת אעשה, כי מצאת חן בעיניי ואדעך בשם. ויאמר הריני נא את כבודך. ויאמר אני אעביר כל טובי על פניך, וקראתי בשם אדוני לפניך, וחנותי את אשר אחון וריחמתי את אשר ארחם. ויאמר לא תוכל לראות את פניי, כי לא יראני האדם בחי. ויאמר אדוני הנה מקום איתי, וניצבת על הצור. והיה בעבור כבודי, ושמתיך במקרת הצור, וסקותי כפי עליך עד עברי. והסירותי את כפי וראית את אחורי, ופניי לא יראו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam atah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Mazel tov to you. Congratulations. We know this is a wonderful thing, not just for Carlin and his personal spiritual life, which it is, but also for your whole family. Mazel tov. Our third aliyah is going to be on verse 30, chapter 34. You guys can say, yeah, because COVID. 34. Chapter 34, the same page, I believe. And we call all, it's going to be a lot of the room. We're going to call everyone who's part of Sojac and or presenting today, and also those who are online, to join us for this third Aliyah, Nala Amo the Aliyah Hashlishit.
Some of you should try to sing right into the microphone.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed. Enu Melacham Asher Kidshanu B'Mitzvot Tzivanu Lahadlik.
Chapter 34, verse 1, page 540.
Amen. ויאמר אדוני אל משה פסלך שני לוחות אבנים כראשונים וכתבתי על הלוחות את הדברים אשר היו על הלוחות הראשונים אשר שיברת. והיה נכון לבוקר ועלית בבוקר אל הר סיני וניצבת לי שם על ראש ההר. ואיש לא יאמר עמך וגם איש אל ירא בכל ההר. גם הצאן והבקר אל יראו אל מול ההר ההוא.
Amen. Mishaberach Avatin Abraham Yitzhak Yaakov Yomotenu Sarif Kara Kalvalea. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah, bless you who have risen today in honor of Shabbat, in honor of community, and in honor of all of your hard work on behalf of our community towards justice and righteousness. May you continue to be blessed with inspiration, with support, and with compassion. May you find an ever-flowing source of strength to help you continue this challenging and important work. And may you continue to bless our community with your leadership and your dedication. And let us say, Amen. Thank you so much. And invite everyone to have a seat. Thank you. Yeah, it's our COVID rules. I'm gonna do healing. Oh, okay. We take a moment to offer a blessing for healing for those who are in our community, in our lives, who are in need of those blessings. And it's really important to remember that our prayer, traditionally from thousands of years ago, was constructed with incredible wisdom to recognize that healing is not just about our bodies, but it's also about our souls. In fact, it says first that we wish refuah shlema, refuah hanefesh, healing of soul, and then healing of body. In this week's Torah portion, we have the smashing of the first set of tablets and a building or a creation of a new set of tablets. And one of my favorite teachings in Judaism is the idea as a midrash that says that the broken tablets were not thrown away. They were in fact stored in the ark itself. They were stored alongside the whole tablets. So we remember that wholeness and brokenness live side by side, and we pray for wholeness in all of our hearts and make sure we include ourselves in these prayers as we need as well. So I'll begin a prayer and then offer opportunity for people to share additional names. I'll look around the room and people at home can share in the chat. Yishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov V'Matenu Sarif Karachel V'Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors and source of all healing be with and help and support and send those who can help and support to Esther, Aviva, Batsara, Adele, Avraham, Michael, Ben Shiri, Yafa, Yosef, Larry Josephson, Paul Rosenblum, Zelda Bat Devora, Yisrael, Mort Gerber, Chava Bat Moish, Paul Lindenbaum, Phyllis Kreitner, Eva Reisman, Kayla Batsara, Amy Mandelker, Margot Hellman, Florence Cohn, Tahila Bat Bella, Florence Rosenthal, Ruth Goldenson, Kate Fricci, Jill Prosky, Reuven Ben Barbara, Shalom Hellman, Alan Gard, Yaakov Ben Ladi, Reyes Ben Sara, Adele Ribolo, Chava Bat Chaya, George Frega, Jennifer Novak, Shimon Ben Sviva Esther, Noam Eliezer Ben Yael Chaya, Hanan Lev Ben Leah, Abigail Fader Kane, Hagain Joseph, Heidi, and Nanette Jesse Gottfried. Cindy Lawrence, Sonali Roadshore, Ari Vogel, Al Steidenberg, and Al Broder, Samantha Martel, Tybalt Rachel Bat Hashka V'Avraham. And any other names?
David Kessler, Rhoda Rand, Gary Rand. Ana elna refanala. Ana elna refanala. Ana elna refanala. Ana elna refanala.
The fourth aliyah will be for those who are observing a yard site today. Na la'amod la'aliyah ha'revi'it. Our Torah reading is found again on page 541, chapter 34, verse 4.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai.
Baruch Atah Kohen va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher bachar banu, v'nasan lanu es toraso, Baruch atah Adonai, nosein haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayisol shnei luchot elanim karishonim. Vayashkem Moshe b'boker vaya'al el har Sinai ka'asher tziva Adonai oto. Vayikach biado shnei luchot avanim. Vayered Adonai be'anan vayityatzeh imo sham vayikra v'shem Adonai vaya'avor Adonai al panav vayikra Adonai Adonai el rachum v'chanun erech apayim v'rav chesed ve'emet notzer chesed la'alafim nosei avon v'fesha v'chata'a v'nakeh lo yinakeh poked avo lavot al banim v'al b'nei banim al sheleshim v'al reveim Vayimaher Moshe vayikod arza vayishtachu Vayomer im na matzati chen beinecha Adonai yelechna Adonai b'kirbenu ki am keshe oref hu v'salachta la'avonenu u'lechatatelu u'nechaltalu.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher nosan lanu toras emes, v'chayei olam nota b'sochenu, Baruch atah Adonai, nosein haTorah.
I would ask each of you to share the name of the person whose yard site you're observing this week.
My dear mother, Leah Bat Binyamin Sasha Merrill.
My father, Harold Anshine Chaim ben Batya, Chaim ben Batya v'Mordechai.
I'm here in connection and representing my mom, who's also on Zoom, the yard site of her father, Seymour Feldman.
And I'll share the Mla Prayer now. Mla Rachamim shochen b'mromim hamitzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina b'malot kedoshim u'tohorim kezohar harakia mahathirim lenishmot Yakirenu kedoshenu shehalchu leolamam. Ana bal harachamim hastirem b'tel kanafecha leolamim. Utzroa b'tzor hachayim et nishmatam Adonai hu nachalatam. V'yanuchu v'shalom hamishkavam v'nomar Amen.
May their memories be for a blessing, and let us say Amen. The fifth aliyah is open for anyone who would like an aliyah for any reason, or if they're celebrating anything of any kind they want to mark. As I mentioned, there's a second covenant that happens in this parsha, in this section we're reading. So if there's any kind of rededication or covenant that you want to celebrate. So is there anyone coming for this aliyah? And if not, we'll make sure that someone, oh, I see David and Caitlin, fantastic. And if there's anyone else, Betsy, Barbara, come on up. Nala Amo, the Aliyah HaChamishit. And our final Torah reading this morning is on page 542, verse 10. So unmute and join on Caitlin and David and Linda can join with our in-person Aliyah.
Baruch Hu
Adonai Hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch
atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan lanu Torah. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Amen.
Amen. Okay. I got your back.
You say.
Amen. Vayomer hine anochi koret brit neged kol amcha e'eser niflaot asher lo nivru v'chol haaretz u'v'chol hagoyim v'ra'ah chol ha'am asher ata b'kirbo et ma'aseh Adonai ki norahu asher ani oseh imach shema lecha את אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, הנני גורש מפניך, את האמורי והכנעני, והחיבי והפריזי, והחיבי והיבוסי. הישמע לך, פן תכרות ברית ליושב הארץ, אשר אתה בא עליה, פן יהיה למוקש בקרבך. כי את מזבחותם תתוצון, ואת מצבותם תשברון, ואת אשריו תברותון. כי לא תשתחווה לאל אחר, כי אדוני קנה שמו, אל קנהו.
So we'll join together, people at home, and join together with people in person for this Aliyah. To finish the final blessings.
Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet
v'hayei
olam natan b'tocheinu.
Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
So can you share what you're up for, if you feel comfortable?
Sure. I've begun drawing and painting again after a year's absence.
Wonderful. That's music to my ears. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really didn't expect to be up here, but my daughter Izzy, who is one of the SAJ teens who started the BBYO here, they're at a convention now with 2,500 Jewish teens who are becoming leaders, and they are having a fabulous time. And it's truly shocking to me, but it's an amazing experience.
Izzy is a rock star, and that is fantastic news. Thank you. Caitlin and David and Linda.
Yeah, I fought for a gaming space to have an anti-Semitism and bigotry policy. I was getting very tired of the misogyny and anti-Semitism when I just wanted to play Magic the Gathering.
I didn't think I heard you. You got a policy together?
I got a policy together for dealing with anti-Semitism and bigotry in a gaming
Yeshua.
space.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, and Yeshua on that great work. David and Linda.
Well, tomorrow is our 45th wedding anniversary.
Ooh, okay. That has to have a mishbeach for that. 44, did you say?
45.
45. Okay. Woo! Mishaberach, Avraham, Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, Ymatinu, Sarah, Karakov, Aleach. Maybe we spotlight them in the whole view. Okay, we're bringing you fully on screen here. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Linda and David who have come for this aliyah this morning. In celebration of Shabbat, in celebration of community, in celebration of 45 years of marriage. Woo! May you continue to delight in one another, to experience life with gratitude, and to have a wonderful time with your children and your beautiful grandchild. May you continue to have many blessings of success and happiness and joy and love and celebration with your entire family and community. And let us say Amen.
La 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya seven seven tov baso 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 tov yelanu b'cho Yisrael Amen.
Yishar koach mazel tov. Nala amod lahag ba'av alik lilap. We call up Dan Miller and Laura Gottlieb Feldman and also Carolyn for opening the ark, dressing and lifting the Torah. Please rise if you are able. And we're on page, we'll move soon towards page 433.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ויד משה. La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ay ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la la ay la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ay ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 oh yeah ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ay ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la la.
Page 433.
Adonai ki niskav shemo levado Hodo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem keren le'avo Tehila lecho chasidav livnei Yisrael am kerovo Hallelujah Hallelujah.
Page 441. It is a tree of life.
Eitz chaim hi למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מיושר דרכיה דחנועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'lashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
We remain standing for the Aleinu on page 445.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם לטע בתוכנו. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
The mourner's Kaddish is on page 450. If you are reciting Kaddish, if it's your custom to stand, you can remain standing. Otherwise, you can be seated. Today, we are remembering the yahrzeits of Walter Green, Milton Dravich, Lawrence Sidransky, Richard Lasday, Harold Anshine, Jordan Ackerman, Helen Nadelson, Seymour Feldman, and Hortense Steinberg. If you're remembering someone that is not named, please call that name out right now. 451. We invoke the transcendent power of love and caring as we sanctify the divine name. Yid Gadal, Yid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'alma divarach hirite, v'amlich malchute. B'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam Omei Almayah. Yiparach Yishabach V'yipa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudasha Brechu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbachata V'nechamata Tamin Ran B'yalma V'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. Amen. Osei Shalom Bimromav. Huya Osei Shalom. Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru. Amen. You can be seated. Can make them like super short. You want to skip? Skip. I think we're going to, is that okay? Okay, I think we're going to skip for the sake of time, making sure we move on to our program, the announcements. Please read your emails and find out what's going on. There's a ton going on, so I will leave it at that. You will hear much more soon. We're going to conclude our service part, our service, and then we're going to move on to the Sojac presentations. On page 321, for Barchenu Avinu, in the middle of Sim Shalom, the beginning of the
Barchenu, second line,
Second line,
Hebrew or transliteration.
Barchenu Avinu, a prayer for peace.
So you may have noticed that we chose some melodies today that with the theme of the service today. So we started with Hareini Mekabelet Alai, that we should love our neighbors as ourselves, and also Olam Chesed Yibaneh, that we will build a world together with love, with God as our partner, and Barchenu Avinu, that we are one people, that we build peace together as a people, as all peoples. And if we have time later, we'll sing an Israeli song that talks about the same thing, about a nivata, that we all need to build together to change the world. Barchenu Avinu, kulanu ke'echad, kulanu ke'echad, be'or panecha. Barchenu Avinu, kulanu ke'echad, kulanu ke'echad, be'or palecha. Barchenu Avinu, kulanu ke'echad, kulanu ke'echad, be'or palecha. Barchenu Avinu, kulanu ke'echad, kulanu ke'echad, be'or palecha. La 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 la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. So if everyone could just want to maybe take a stretch, take a moment of either inner seats or standing, just to we're making a transition. If anyone is not staying for this section, that's also fine. We wish you a good Shabbat. And I wanted to, even though we didn't do full announcements, I did want to thank and give a shkoach to Debbie Rand for leading and laning at the same time. Such a beautiful, beautiful job. So we're going to come back. Don't go too far unless you're leaving. And Shabbat Shalom if you are. No, I'll take that. Thank you.
I would like to remind everyone of Voices of SAJ next week.
Oh, thank you, Marilyn. I will make that announcement. Everyone's sort of stretching, but when we get back together, we can make that announcement. Okay, so we'll call everyone back for the sake of time. You can always continue to stretch in your bodies during this period of time. And we skipped announcements because of time, but Marilyn is correct. Next Friday is Voices of the SAJ with writings from many, many members, and Marilyn has curated this, and it's Friday night via Zoom. So please look out for announcements about that. And that is going to be a very special evening, as it is every year. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay. I think it's one person at a time. Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Just a reminder that if you need to get up and stretch at any point, you can continue to do that. And we're thrilled that you are here and that you're staying for our Sojac program. Give SAJ an inch and then an inch to socialize. Okay. Shh. For the sake of all the speakers who are here, we want to get started. So please take a seat. And if you want to join us down here, there's plenty of room. We can move some chairs over. We can be closer together. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, I'm actually getting a little bit of like needing to be a little bit of the stern school teacher here. So let's come with me. Come with me, guys. Okay. Shh. All right. A lot of people have worked very hard for today, and we want to make sure they have the time that they need. As I've mentioned so far in this service, the Parsha is Ki Tisa. And Ki Tisa is, of course, when the tablets are broken, and Moses, in anger, breaks the tablets after seeing the behavior of the Israelites. And in a beautiful Talmudic passage that I've taught before, there's this incredible switch of that experience through the lens of the rabbis. They actually believe or want to make a case for the fact that God is happy that Moses broke the tablets. And Reish Lakish, doing a play on words, takes the words Asher Shebarata, that you broke, and switches it to Yesher Kochacha, Yesher Koach, on breaking the tablets. Great job on breaking the tablets. A complete reversal of the Peshat, of the exact meaning of the text, in a brilliant Talmudic move. So what does this mean, the breaking of the tablets? Good job on breaking the tablets. So for today, on the Shabbat, where we celebrate our social justice and social action work and think about the future of SAJ's social action work, I want to talk about the power, very briefly, of disruption. The power of being able to look at a situation, look at what is going on around, and say, this is not okay. What is happening around me is not acceptable. This is not moral, and this is not okay. Just like Moses saw, and to be able to smash the tablets and disrupt and say, no, we're not going to do things business as usual anymore. We are not going to do things this old way. We're going to find new ways. So this Shabbat, we're celebrating 100 years of SAJ breaking the tablets, which we've done in multiple levels, but in particular today on the level of social action, social justice, and thinking about what goes forward. So I want to thank Myra for her organizing and invite her to come up and introduce the program.
Thank you, Rabbi. You are really an inspiration to all of us, really lighting the way for social justice in your own thinking and action. It's exciting to be here with all of you for this special celebration. When the committee discussed the event, we decided to go counter to our usual pattern of hosting a speaker or a panel. We thought that we would share our experiences of social justice and action by SAJ members. We would talk about study, advocacy, action, and fundraising with some history, but with a focus on the present and the future. And many issues seem disparate, but revolve around the issue of human rights and democracy. You can take away with you the mitzvah sheets that have been distributed by Gail and Jackie. Francine Perlman just spent hours updating them, and we're going to add a couple of things as well. They are a guide to places where you can volunteer and donate, and I suggest sign up for your own emails to keep up with a wide variety of programs. In looking at SAJ history, just as many of us have never asked all the questions of our grandparents and parents and had all the serious talks about the past, Those of us active at SAJ know little about the past history of these activities at SAJ. Thanks to Barbara Ann Schmutzler, who has pored over the archives and picked out some exciting stories, and to Phyllis Palm, who found and told me that the Center for Jewish History had boxes of SAJ papers, which I pored over. I am so intrigued. I hope to do more and offer a Tish in the future, but here are a few stories. From the beginning, social justice was part of the SAJ mission. We can have slide 1 if we're ready. The mission, and it was used on the letterhead, all talked about social justice. Oh, that's the wrong slide, but there's Ann Meyer. The struggle to find a new path for Judaism in America, led by Rabbi Kaplan, focused on study, prayer, and building a community. As far as I could see, a few programs reflected the feeling that Judaism and sometimes Jewish existence was threatened. That insecurity may also have contributed to less outward activity. There was a great deal of study, but not activity as far as I can tell. The primary and essential external issue was support for the growth of a Jewish community in Palestine and later Israel. But slowly in the 40s, social and political issues became more frequent, even a study, especially in what was called a youth division, which were young adults, that's the first one, which met virtually every Sunday evening. On slide 2, if we get to it, you can see a talk about atomic energy with many issues based on a conference that lay members had attended. And then by the 50s, there was a new interest in local issues, reflecting significant changes in the city, especially on the west side, which of course people felt would affect the future of SAJ. The most amazing was that in 1957, the Women's Division sponsored an all-day conference on urban renewal, on housing, education, and recreation, and understanding your neighbor. The committee researched neighborhood facilities and leaders to prepare. Next slide 3. I love the pictures of people with their hats. And the women at the time were known as Mrs. John Smith, never by Mrs. Jane Smith. And so I don't even know necessarily the first names of some of the women. They actually had a stenographer or multiple note takers, and every word of this conference has been recorded, and I'll give a talk on that at some point. But the interest was encouraged not only by circumstances, but by having a member of SAJ, James Felt, who was chair of the relatively new City Planning Commission. Felt not only spoke that day, but at many other SAJ meetings of the Youth Division, the Men's Club, the Women's Division. He represented a move to rethink major slum clearance projects, such as the clearing of Lincoln Center, and to rethink zoning to consult with the community and guide the city away from the era of Robert Moses. The conference featured participation by local nonprofits, political leaders, and a guest, Rabbi Edward Klein of Stephen Wise. I hope to most of us assumed that our special Ann Meyer had started the Social Concerns Committee, and indeed she may have started that committee, but there were many predecessors in the years that followed this conference. There was Community Affairs, Social Action, Community Affairs again, Social Action again. There were multiple committees in 1973. Women's Liberation, Alienation, I don't know what that was, Old Age, in which Mimi and Lori Lieber participated, and Drugs, Crime, and Justice, with Jack Hoffinger as chair, Noel Berman, I only took the names of people that you would know, Ann Meyer and Naomi Miller among the members. I don't know if you remember that, Naomi. I do know that Ann became active at the time of the civil rights movement and anti-war efforts, and somewhere after that, possibly the other committees faded away and Social Concerns was formed, and certainly active in the 1980s when I joined. So there's much more to be learned and said about the history. Skipping ahead to more recent actions, I wanted to mention some other work that we have done and members of SAJ have done that are not mentioned by the speakers. Under Ann's leadership, our annual lunches and meetings frequently led to projects. We had several meetings devoted to microcredit, which we found a challenging method of aiding the poor. We decided to raise money for a domestic microcredit project. We raised $13,000, lent the money to Tzedek, which had a program, and it was part of Bend the Arc. And we put the money to work in New Orleans after Katrina. The loan returned to SAJ because it was a loan and not a gift. That was kind of amazing. When Bend the Arc was reconstituted as Jewish Funds for Justice, which does advocacy only. Since the money was SAJ's, we then lent the money to the Hebrew Free Loan Society, where it still is. It's a small amount, but apparently in the first year after we lent it, about 5 years ago, it inspired Hebrew Free Loan to get many more loans, which in turn are lent out which is the job of Hebrew Free Loan. We have also done projects with Project Ezra, which assists the elderly, particularly Holocaust survivors on the Lower East Side. Nancy and Malcolm did a story and music program, and there were several programs with Hebrew school students and the committee visiting and getting to know the elderly and their stories. We hope to do other programs with our school children. You may remember Common Sense, where Michael Davidson led campaigns for a penny harvest, mostly with the students, and as well as programs very recently for refugees and immigrants that we did in the Sukkah. Before continuing with the program, I would like to thank Eden Sidney Foster, who was administrator of the 100th and contributed a great deal to today's success. And especially, I want to thank Nancy Ludmer and Danielle Gerard for the stimulating, challenging, and amazing tish they gave this morning. Yep. Yay. They led the way for this program. I will introduce the speakers, and they will speak successively. You will hear both in person and on Zoom. You will hear the breadth and depth of our work, and hopefully to join in some projects or come up with a new one. We love to have people on the committee, and we are eager to have people participate in activities which can take just a bit of time and produce good works. Well, where's my list? Okay. One more thing that was done right before, in the last couple of years, Naomi Miller and Jane Shamanish not only started the the Black Lives Reading Group, but they also helped organize the amazing trip that we took to the South for civil rights trip, which was, who knew would be the last time, certainly that I went anywhere, and many of us went anywhere in January of 2020. So please be patient about questions, no questions or comments until the end. The first speaker will be, I'm going to read them all, Francine. Francine Perlman will speak on Ann Meyer and housing and IAHH. Roberta Katz, Open Heart and Homeless. Karen Greenberg-Perkis, MTA, Manhattan Together, including NYCHA. Then on Zoom, Susan Saville for WISCA. Zoom, Kathy Wolk for Fair Pay for Care Workers. Zoom, Ruth Messenger, and in person, Ellen Gesmer on racial justice study, Tisch presentations. Evie Litwack on criminal justice and witness for mass incarceration. Amy Yankin on reproductive rights, the escorts to the abortion clinic. Then I will speak about refugee and asylum seekers, and on Zoom, Ken Peshkin, Afghan refugees and sponsorship. Christy Sherman, Getting Out the Vote, and Malcolm Spector, Trail Maintenance Project. We will then hopefully have some time for comments, memories, and questions from all of you. Thank you.
And don't worry, we're not each speaking for a half an hour. So today we honor SAJ's beloved Ann Meyer, who was one of the first leaders of the Social Concerns Committee. Can people hear her now? God. Shall I start again? Today we honor SAJ's beloved Ann Meyer, who was one of the first leaders of the Social Concerns Committee, now Sojac. Just as each of us in Sojac has our particular mission that we bring to the table, Ann's passion was housing and the homeless, and her social concerns agenda was educating people about the terrible state of homelessness in New York City and what we might do about it. She pointed us into the future where we are now, with unfortunately plenty still to do. Ann was a founder of Beyond Shelter, a coalition of 28 synagogues and community organizations on the west side of Manhattan. And that's where I met Ann. Beyond Shelter's banner read, "Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, rescue the poor and needy," from Psalm 82. Beyond Shelter partnered with several organizations in the housing movement, especially the Porodnik Foundation, which had a broad agenda and provided, among other aid, financial assistance to HDFC, Housing Development Fund Corporation cooperatives, so that tenants could purchase and rehab their abandoned buildings. Each year, Ann gathered amazing musical talent for a show at Symphony Space to benefit Porodnik. And I can see her now walking proudly down the aisle at the end of the program to collect flowers and much-deserved appreciation. Through Ann and Beyond Shelter, I connected with the Interfaith Assembly on Homelessness and Housing, IAHH, whose director, Mark Greenberg, was invited often to speak at SAJ. The IAHH is out there now with its advocacy partners. It was, for example, at a rally and sleep out in front of the Lucerne Hotel, at a months-long weekly vigil in front of Governor Cuomo's New York office to demand release of $1.9 billion for supportive housing that was being withheld, and many other important events that I and several other SAJers have attended. IAHH, for 25 years until the pandemic, sponsored a mentoring program, Panim al Panim, face-to-face, which provided a solid community for those currently or previously homeless. I was fortunate to mentor there for many years, a very moving and important learning experience for me. The best part of my story and the personal part is that Anne and I became fast friends as she lived just across the street from me. Anne had a great sense of humor and was so very smart. We enjoyed regular Shabbos dinners together, and we laughed a lot, and we shared our love of Yiddish, but also sadness about the injustices of the world. Anne hosted the first Seder for many years with a few friends and relatives, including me. In 2009, my niece decided to have a first Seder for the first time, and I chose to go there. Anne died late that night. I didn't see her. But we can all remember Anne annually on her yurt site, Erev Pesach.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you see me? I have been involved with the Upper West Side Open Hearts Initiative. I'm sorry, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah.
You're short like me, so it should work.
Thanks. My name is Roberta Katz. My husband Richard and I joined SAJ in July. I have been involved with the Upper West Side Open Hearts Initiative program since it started in 2020, when 283 homeless men were relocated from a shelter to the Lucerne Hotel after the COVID outbreak. The purpose of this innovative program, which 2 Upper West Side women started, was to create a welcoming environment with support. Rabbi Lauren was an intrinsic force attending rallies in support of the men and played a big part of the interfaith group leading walks and talks for spiritual guidance. The group also helped secure housing for many of the residents. In addition, Open Hearts worked with Project Renewal to provide comprehensive health services, including help for substance abuse. I helped lead donation drives collecting clothing, toys, etc. My husband and I helped furnish a couple of homes as well. Currently, the group has a free store approximately once a month. The free store helps to address the needs of those who are currently moved in permanent housing, as well as those who are in other shelters since the Lucerne has closed. If you have items to donate, my husband and I can bring them to the free store if you can't. I can also provide further information to show you how you can help, including voter registration, resume workshops, employment fairs, and providing housewarming items for those who transition to permanent housing, such as bedding, kitchen items, etc. Organized events have also included political forums and social media. Our mere presence, the Upper West Side Open Hearts people, our mere presence showed the homeless community that we cared and wanted to help in any way possible. We showed compassion and respect, unlike the other side. When appropriate children were involved and got to know some of the men. Open Hearts has expanded to other communities, providing needed support as those groups begin their process. Open Hearts Initiative's mission is to continue their work creating a helpful, kind environment whenever and wherever it is needed.
Manhattan Together, MT, is a member of the Metro Industrial Areas Foundation, IAF, a grassroots faith-based community organization. Its member institutions are active mainly in housing, gun control, and education issues. I was the liaison for the SAJ with MT. The SAJ participated in many demonstrations and assemblies and all meetings. SAJ also provided immigration advice. Over 400,000 tenants have lived in public housing run by the New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA. For decades, many poor people have endured mold on walls, leaky roofs, rats and other vermin, asbestos, lead paint, etc. The IAF, including MT and other members, took NYCHA to court and got an independent mold and league ombudsman appointed, who forced NYCHA to make real repairs for over 4,100 families. Much more needs to be done. IAF, including MT, also has a Do Not Stand Idly By gun control campaign. The criminally minded go to states like Georgia that don't do background checks. They buy and drive their weapons to other states where they kill people. Far too many guns are still brought to New York. Gun dealers compete to sell the most lethal guns instead of the safest. A safe gun is a smart gun designed so only authorized people can fire it. Many jurisdictions joined Do Not Stand Idly By and requested gun manufacturers make and sell smart guns to authorized dealers only. IAF, including MT, has gotten stockholders of gun companies to sign on to Do Not Stand Idly By, so these companies make and sell smart guns, but many more still need to sign on. IAF and MT's third focus is education. Children needing special ed are put in overcrowded classes so they don't get individual attention. In 2017, with IAF and MT prodding, the city committed to spending $14.8 million more to fix the special ed student information system. MT is continuing to work in these areas and now in mental health, energy retrofitting, access to the internet, and others. A lot more work is still needed. We're soliciting people to become involved in MT and carry on this important work.
Susan Sable? Okay, so Susan, can you unmute Susan Sable?
There I am.
And can we spotlight Susan? There you are.
Hi,
Thank you.
there I am. Hi. 1.1 million New York residents, representing 12.9% of the population, and including 1 of 3 New York City children, are food insecure. SAJ has been involved in addressing hunger and food insecurity in New York City for decades. The late Ann Meyer, who we heard about earlier, encouraged support of Food Bank for New York, which SAJ continues to support every year at Yom Kippur. For 43 years, the West Side Campaign Against Hunger has pioneered a model that invites customers to choose food from an array of healthy options: fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy. SAJ members have been involved with the West Side Campaign Against Hunger for more than a dozen years. SAJ volunteers started by stocking shelves and bagging bread, and then progressed to assisting shoppers, explaining the system, and aiding them with their food selections. As most of you know, 12 years ago, together with West End Synagogue and WISCA, the 1,000 Turkey Challenge was born as an interfaith coalition. And the first year, 150 WISCA customers received Thanksgiving turkeys. In the following years, the Turkey Challenge expanded to a community coalition of religious organizations, schools, and other nonprofit groups. SAJ continued to be involved in the organization of the Turkey Challenge with WISCA. We could never have imagined that for Thanksgiving 2021, WISCA would distribute more than 8,000 turkeys, far exceeding our 1,000 turkey challenge. Several years ago, WISCA launched the mobile market to go to various Manhattan locations for shoppers who were not able to get to the 86th Street facility. Since the beginning of the pandemic, Whiskas operation has changed dramatically. Last year, Whiskas served 77,000 customers, an increase of 248%. They distributed 4.4 million pounds of food, of which 50% was fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, something previously unknown in food pantries. Whiskas has expanded the mobile market and now has partners in all 5 boroughs, while still serving customers on 86th Street with a revised shopping system. This month, our new Mayor Adams announced that for the first time, the New York City Emergency Food Assistance Program, known as EFAP, will finally be adding fresh produce, the result of a campaign which Whiskas helped to spearhead. In addition to food, Whiskas Social Services Department helps customers to access essential benefits such as food stamps, healthcare, and housing. Assistance with access to these social benefits increased up over 300% since the pandemic. Whiskas continues to be a leader in emergency food, growing partnerships with other community-based organizations, local elected officials, health centers, hospitals, senior centers, and religious organizations. Now, I'm sorry to say that Kathy Woke, who was supposed to speak on fair pay for care workers, the caring majority, and J-Fred, is for some reason unable to connect on Zoom. And I know that they're supporting the bill in the New York State Legislature for fair pay for care workers. And I don't know if Myra can say a few words about that. Myra?
Yeah, thank you. I don't have the whole talk. I wish, well, first, these wonderful pictures from the food pantry, if you can enjoy. The people, it's now outside, and
There's someone getting a turkey.
And this is somebody getting a turkey. The wonderful fruits and vegetables, which really is one of the great innovations of Whiskas. The turkey.
No, the turkey.
And the mobile pantry. Okay, so let me just say that Marjorie Lakeland brought this project to us a year or two ago. She's in Lyon visiting her daughter and grandchild. So the project is from Fair Pay for Care Workers. They're working with the caring majority and J-Fred. The issue is that the people who work who do caring work are terribly underpaid. They don't even get a minimum wage. They're basically paid on a 24-hour basis, which means if they're paid by Medicaid or in general, so they paid for 13 hours a day for a 24-hour day. And it comes out to nothing, very little. There are issues on all sides. They're not trained. Many of them are undocumented workers. They're minority people. We've seen pictures of care workers who are actually homeless because they can't even afford living in a shelter because they can't afford to pay their own rent while they're doing this caring. So it's a very big issue. We had a big program on it a year ago with a full film, and it's something any of you might be interested in participating in, and we will be doing some advocacy that you'll hear about very soon, and I urge you to participate in that, to get our New York State Legislature to get fair pay into the budget, which is very difficult. It's very important. If you're older, you want to make sure that when you need help, you get the help. And if you're younger and it's your parents may be the ones that are involved, that they get the pay to get involved. So you can see this for all ages. We do have 2 film clips to show you that are very powerful, that I think, and I'm sorry Kathy couldn't do the whole presentation. And then as soon as we see the film clips, we'll be followed by Ruth and Ellen.
Hey, Ruth, do you want to go ahead and go? They're going to figure out the audio for the clip and then show the clip after you go.
Sure, Noah. Okay, hi, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. First of all, if you're not following in the chat, I want to, on behalf of all of SAJ, welcome all of the people from Adat Shalom who are on and listening and who do fantastic social justice work themselves. I want to thank the rabbi for putting this in the context of the power of disruption. And I want to thank Nancy and Danielle for what I thought was an extraordinarily brilliant Tish. Their emphasis on the importance of voting rights relates to every single issue that any one of us is bringing up in this panoply of work on hunger and racism and abortion that we're all doing, because if we don't protect voting rights, all of those issues are going to be in trouble. And I want to thank them for emphasizing the importance of each one of us doing something. Also, I have to add two notes of history. Francine talked about Anne joining Beyond Shelter. I want to just say that Beyond Shelter was an extraordinarily disruptive action because the then mayor of New York City, who was Ed Koch, called on synagogues and churches all over the city to provide housing for homeless people every night, which many of them did. And then he thought it would stop there. And the whole idea of Beyond Shelter was to say, if you're providing shelter, you also need to be engaged in advocacy and fight the city to provide housing for the homeless. So a thank you to Anne for that. Ellen and I are talking about race and racism. I think all of you were aware, at least, that the SAJ came in early in the last 3 years as these issues boiled up, with forming a book club, joining a group of synagogues who were looking at the Black Lives Matter Constitution. There have been reading groups, there have been discussions, and then in a very, I think, powerful and also slightly disruptive way, a group of us got together to say there are so many different issues from what is it like to be a person of color in this society, to the history of mass incarceration, to the understanding of critical race theory, that you can't do this all at once or in 5 minutes. And we organized, and then we basically petitioned both SAJ and Dan Woods as the Tish Maven to let us do a whole series of interconnected Tishes. We are in the middle of doing that work. Ellen may have more to say about the content of that work, but I just want to make 2 points. One was made by Ellen this morning in her comment in the Tish, which is that we need to face the fact that none of us knows the truth, that what we were taught about the history of America, about the history of race in America, about the history of land in America, is at best a glossy and idealized version of what actually happened, and misstates very often what was going on, who was involved, and the ways in which individually and organizationally and politically we've all been involved with allowing or advancing systemic and structural racism. And then I want to end by saying exactly what again was said in the Tish this morning. Every single one of us has to do our work for justice. And when Nancy and Danielle talked about the meaning of the second use of the word justice, for me, as they tried to suggest, it's not only what you do in community with organizations in the society, it's what each of us does individually, looking at our own race understandings, at our own race misunderstandings, at our own participation in aspects of systemic racism, and what we can do individually to advance justice. And I will end with one of my favorite stories. This is from Amos Oz, the contemporary writer, who said, if someone sees a huge calamity in the form of a burning fire, they have choices on how to react. One choice is to bring a bucket of water and throw it on the fire. But if you don't have a bucket, bring a glass. And if you don't have a glass, use a teaspoon. Everyone has a teaspoon. And yes, Amos Oz said, and yes, I know a teaspoon is little and the fire is huge, but there are millions of us and each one of us has a teaspoon. So examining our own commitment to building a multiracial society, undoing some of what we understand and believe, and looking for new ways to move forward and to educate the next generation is incumbent on each one of us, and there are millions of us. Thank you.
It's always hard to follow Ruth. I'm speaking really as a representative of this group and not as a leader, because as Myra said, the group was very much brought together by the efforts of Naomi Miller and Jane Shamanish. And since we've been working together, we work very collectively and collaboratively. The SAJ Social Justice Reading Group, as 2020 went on, became more and more focused on race, partly because many of us attended the extraordinary SAJ civil rights trip to the South in January of 2020. And of course, because we are all deeply, deeply, deeply affected by the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020 and all of... Okay. Because we are all deeply affected by the events of May 2020 and the murder of George Floyd. So we read a series of books, and I'll only mention some of them. Some of the books we read were sort of what I think will now become classics about the understanding of race in our country, like Isabel Wilkerson's Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent, which I think actually should be required for reading for every American. And we also read more specialized books on particular issues in race. We read an extraordinary book called Sisters in Hate, American Women on the Front Lines of White Nationalism, which I found really shocking. We also read a book which is very detailed about voter issues called One Person, No Vote, How Voter Suppression is Destroying Our Democracy. But we also read books which are not explicitly about race, but really helped us to think about difference and how we perceive difference, like Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers, What We Should Know About the People We Don't Know. And also, similarly, how our culture causes us to develop our thinking, it causes us not to develop our thinking about race in a positive way, but in a very bad way. In particular, I'm thinking of a book we read called The Hype Machine, How Social Media Works, by Sinan Aral, to make us think about how social media affects how we all think about race. At the same time, some of us were in a separate study group about the Vision for Black Lives, which is the manifesto issued by the Movement for Black Lives. That reading group was run by two prominent feminist Jewish activist academics and included about a dozen people from different congregations. And the idea was that we would study the Vision for Black Lives in depth, almost like we were reading Torah or Talmud, and that we would then bring back to our congregations what we had learned from reading that. So in the spring of 2021, as we all talked about what we'd been reading and thinking about, we realized that although most of us had thought of ourselves as somewhat knowledgeable about the issues of race, that we had all learned an enormous amount from this in-depth reading process. And it also made us realize how poorly educated we were about race in this country, and in fact, not only poorly educated, but in many respects, miseducated about what race means. So that led us to thinking about bringing what we'd been thinking about to the whole congregation with the series of tissues that we created. So there are more coming up, starting next week on mass incarceration, and then through June, there will be Tish presentations on reparations, the police, and the Vision for Black Lives. We also intend to continue this series next year and maybe the year after. Sessions which we've begun talking about putting together include sessions on critical race theory, the experience of Latinx Americans, the experience of Asian Americans, and we welcome others to join us in this project. Thanks.
I hope you don't mind, there's a speaker and a half here. My name's Evie Litwak, in case you don't know me, and I am here today to bear witness to how a rabbi, a congregation, and a social justice committee responded in real life to me, a formerly incarcerated person, and how you transformed and gave me so much. I'm directly impacted. I was part of the carceral state, and what you did was welcome a stranger in real time, and I thank you for that. So I'm speaking to you. I have a new addition to my introduction. As a formerly incarcerated Jewish lesbian, child of two survivors of the Holocaust, a proud member of SAJ and of Sojac. Not sure if I'll use that all when I speak publicly. And as some of you might know, I was released in 2014 and remained homeless and penniless for 16 months. Couldn't pick up my dog, couldn't visit my mother. It was a very hard time. And during that time, I testified at the Board of Corrections about my time in solitary confinement, and Elaine Schulman came over to me and said, "You need to come to SAJ right now." Okay, I didn't even know what SAJ was when she said that. She said, this is a place where you belong. You will love the rabbi. You will love the congregation. And I want to thank Elaine because this is one of the most rewarding experiences and times of my life to be part of this congregation. Now, as a formerly incarcerated person, I was not treated well anywhere else. So I need you to understand that outside of this environment, I was not welcomed. But when I did come here the first time, Jordan Wook said, "Let me buy you a drink." He walked right over to me, "Let me buy you a drink at the Kiddush," and took me upstairs where people walked over and introduced themselves. Now, I had been to other synagogues, and at Kiddush, absolutely no one talked to me, and I felt awkward. I do not feel like a stranger here, and furthermore, my first Shabbat, and I need to tell this story even though some of you have heard this already, I had no money, and Rabbi Lauren walked over to me at the Kiddush, and she said, "You know, we have all this food gets left over and gets thrown out. Why don't you take some home?" And we were standing in the middle of the Kiddush, and I started crying immediately. So she took me quickly into the kitchen, and I said, I'm embarrassed at my poverty. And so she said, you can do this in the kitchen, so nobody has to see it. And that just calmed me down, and Rabbi, I'll never forget that. Now, I joined Sojac immediately and was thrilled that they embraced the issue of mass incarceration and thrilled that they were willing to do all that they did. They dedicated a luncheon to it, and we did a whole book club on it. But based on my own experience of coming home, I brought certain projects. First project, when I came home, I had nothing, not a phone, not a computer, not an extra shirt. But harder than coming home was coming home alone. I arrived at Port Authority to no one, in that I was sobbing in the middle of Port Authority at my own overwhelming loneliness. So the Suitcase Project, which is one of our projects, SAJ was the first synagogue to raise money, and raise money for two different people who we met, who we had lunch with, and who they're not doing too well, but understand it's been 3 years. They call me all the time, and what they say all the time is that they were never ever part of anything, and that meeting us in a group and feeling that love even for an hour had a tremendous impact that they have not forgotten. So you have to understand, my metric of success was we made two people, we led two people into our lives who will never forget the experience of a synagogue that paid attention to them. The rest of re-entry is a much harder concept. Sojac also supports pen paling to people in prison. Francine led a workshop for and invited formerly incarcerated people. And on a current campaign that I just began January 27th, when I realized how cold it was outside, and the fact that prisons do not give you hats, gloves, sweaters, or any kind of warm clothing, I started a campaign by myself called the Hats and Gloves for Rikers campaign. And outside of 3 donations, the largest donors and the most generous were members of this congregation. We still have a little ways to go, but we've raised 31,000 of the 45,000 needed. So we already have, we got them to start working on putting the order together. It comes from China. I have a clip to show you. From the Suitcase Project from our first meeting. I got you. I'm glad to see I'm not the only one who can't do this. If you could make it hold screen, that would be great. Did we lose the clip?
Let me suggest that if we can, we'll show them afterwards, but we really have a few speakers. These clips are really fabulous.
Is it possible to show or no?
I don't think it's good.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Can you start it from the beginning? This has members of SAJ, which. Oh, please, please.
Whenever I think of faith, I think of my father, and I think of him smiling as he put on his tallis and his tefillin. It gave him great joy, and now it gives me great joy. I would never have expected, it's gonna make me cry, this kind of joy from it. That's why I'm doing this project through, I believe in my heart, it will be extraordinarily successful because the people who I'm asking to participate are phenomenal people, are people of faith. And that's going to be the difference. If the Suitcase Project can have a domino effect, where I'm doing it around the country, my belief is that welcoming the stranger, which is a big Jewish value, will be a whole lot easier.
That's a clip from us meeting the first person who received the suitcase. I'm honored to be part of this work as a directly impacted person, and I know the work makes a difference in everybody's life who's directly impacted one way or another. Thank you.
That was incredibly moving, and just that was incredibly moving, and all the presentations today and that one remind me of what an incredibly special place this is. I'm Amy Yankin. As you know, for the last few years, a group of dedicated SAJers, led by Sarit and myself, have been escorting at 2 abortion clinics. We started at Bronx Abortion, and in the past year, we've been escorting at Park Med in Manhattan. I want to acknowledge and thank Rabbi Lauren for her leadership. We're told this is the only program of its kind led by synagogue in the country. And when we started, escorting takes place on Saturday mornings. And we talked with Rabbi Lauren about whether this would be possible. And she said there's a lot of ways you can worship and pray. And one of them is on your feet in front of an abortion clinic. So I want to talk a little bit about how the scene has changed since we started escorting and what we might expect if the Supreme Court overturns Roe or restricts abortion to 15 weeks. I also want to tell you more about what it means to escort at Park Med in the hopes that you might consider joining us. We need volunteers. When I started escorting in 2016 at Bronx Abortion, the scene was pretty calm. There was a prayer group and a few sidewalk counselors. Sidewalk counselors are the protesters, antis, we call them, who approach women and try to get them to change their minds. Bronx Abortion at that time only needed 3 escorts. Things have changed dramatically in the last 5 years. Now, every Saturday morning at Bronx Abortion, there are 6 to 8 people escorting, fending off a large and aggressive crowd of antis. Escorts have to physically get patients into the clinic, coming into direct contact with the antis. Barricades are now set up to protect patients and escorts because of COVID. SAJ stopped escorting at Bronx Abortion when COVID hit, and we have yet to go back. The clinic, though, has many, many volunteers, so that's good. Our efforts now are needed at Park Med. Escorting there looks different. The clinic is inside a building that houses the Israeli consulate. This was deliberate. Therefore, the NYPD and counterterrorism units are stationed outside. They will not allow any commotion or obstruction of the building or the sidewalk. The presence of antis, therefore, is not as intense as at Bronx Abortion. Although the clinic thought they might need regular escorts after monitoring the situation for several weeks last fall, Sarit and I determined that a regular Saturday contingent of escorts could escalate the situation and encourage more protest activity. Therefore, we escort at Park Med on an as-needed basis only when larger and or organized protests are planned. Our presence during those times de-escalates the situation by putting the protesters on notice. We monitor the entrance and the sidewalk to be sure they're clear. We liaise with the police, and when necessary, we put on vests and man the door so that patients have a clear path to entry without being blocked by sidewalk counselors. There's a reason why the scene at Bronx Abortion and other clinics is getting more aggressive. There's been a wave of funding, large and small, organized and grassroots, national and local, that is training people in how to be sidewalk counselors, the folks who interfere and try to get women to not have abortions. They want to create an intimidating presence, and they believe they can change minds. This well-funded effort has resulted in an increasing level of aggressiveness. More and more people are being trained to protest and interfere. Bronx abortion has seen a marked shift. This could happen at Park Med as well, and it's something we're watching. The upcoming Supreme Court decision makes the anti-choice movement even more emboldened. They feel they have the wind at their backs. If the Supreme Court overturns Roe or restricts abortion to 15 weeks, abortion will still be permitted under New York state law up to 25.6 weeks. Park Med is one of the few independent clinics performing later abortions. They also have established relationships with national abortion funds, and they are a vital pipeline for women coming from out of state or women who are seeking later abortion care. If the Supreme Court restricts abortion, the clinic will see even more activity. As I stated before, we now escort at Park Med on an as-needed basis. We're needed now. Starting early next month and running through Easter, the anti-choice protest called 40 Days for Life is taking place. This is a time of year of increased and organized protests at clinics all over the country. And they identify specific clinics where people can go. So you can go on their website and they say, go to Park Med, go to Bronx Abortion, go to Planned Parenthood. SAJ escorts will be volunteering on 6 Saturday mornings from March 5th to April 9th. There are 2 shifts, 8 to 10 and 10 to noon, and we would love volunteers. This is a great way to get a sense of what is happening at abortion clinics, but in a much less intense environment than Bronx Abortion. So starting next week, there'll be a blurb in the newsletter with my contact information. You can also find me after the presentation. You can get my information from the office. I hope you'll join us. Thank you.
It's me again, I almost forgot. So I'm as Jews, we have a long history as refugees, and of course as Americans, we're almost, unless you're a Native American, we're all immigrants. HIAS, which began working with Jewish refugees as the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, is now called HIAS, working for all refugees, Jews working for others. 6 years ago, mostly others. 6 years ago, Sojac had a program about Syrian refugees and followed up with aid for people in Syria. We visited the offices of Schumer and Gillibrand with other synagogues to increase the number of refugees admitted to the U.S. In the spring of that year, we were among the initial members of SCRIC, the Synagogue Coalition for Refugees and the Immigration Crisis, which now has at least 29 members. Synagogues and affiliated NGOs. The group meets monthly to share information and plan activities. We work particularly with HIAS, and which is one of the 9 major organizations, by the way, that aids immigrants and refugees across the U.S. and the world. So who knew that in January of 2017, we would be dealing with a major calamity as immigration was stopped at the borders, and we marched and petitioned and supported lawsuits against the president and the government. Not that immigration has been simple, but there were just so many incredible changes. Rabbi Lawrence set an example in action. A few went to the border, visited people in detention, accompanied the undocumented to hearings, and marched in the streets. And for 4 years, we kept working. So did it end? No. We are still concerned about the crisis at the southern border, about family separation, the methods and deportation used by ICE across the country, and DACA, to give a path to citizenship for young people, has not yet been passed. And now we have a new crisis following the withdrawal from Afghanistan. There are thousands of new refugees and asylum seekers. A large number worked with our servicemen in Afghanistan and are eligible for a special immigrant visa, but others have other issues, and Ken will be talking about that. In addition to HIAS, there are other organizations that we have connected to. Ruth's Refuge, a spinoff from Beth Elohim in Brooklyn, is setting up apartments and furnishing them. They did 11 apartments last week with donated furniture, purchased linens and kitchen items, and volunteer truckers. And I think we've published their information, and we'll publish it again, but you can also look at their website. It's an easy way to help. With HIAS, we have just completed a phone banking project to Congress to add an item into the budget altering humanitarian parole, which does not allow a real path to citizenship. And since we didn't get it in this week, we will have another campaign around February 28th, so stay tuned for that. Phone banking, which they give you an automatic dialer thing, it takes you 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, and it's a very easy way to participate and a way to help. And now we'll hear from Ken Peshkin, who's been specifically been working on humanitarian parole. Ken, are you?
Yes, I'm here on Zoom.
Good. Okay, great.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that introduction. And as Mara was saying, I am working on one part of the immigration crisis worldwide, which is the Afghan refugee situation, by helping Afghan people apply for humanitarian parole, which if successful would allow them to come to the United States and for a limited time, up to a year, during which they could apply for asylum here. It's not a legal status, just let them stay here and apply for asylum temporarily. Of course, this happened in the wake of U.S. pullout in Afghanistan in August of 2021, last year. I found an organization called the Afghan Network for Advocacy and Resources, ANAR, and this is actually a group, an ad hoc group that came together. It's not a giant organization like the Red Cross. It's a few people who have coordinated an enormous effort of pro se volunteers like me who are connected to Afghan refugees. There are a lot of people involved for each refugee. There's usually a translator involved, someone in the United States. There's a petitioner. Each person who we bring over requires a U.S. person to bring them over, so that's the petitioner. And there's a financial sponsor that's required, someone who steps forward and says that I am willing to say that this person, while becoming a parolee, is not going to become a public charge. So all these people have to come together. I coordinate all this, put together an application of documents, including the reasons why humanitarian parole should be granted, and file a giant application with the U.S. government. Basically, I have to show that there's a significant humanitarian need that's urgent, or there's some extremely good benefit to the United States to bringing them over. It's a very difficult thing. But unfortunately, some of these Afghans are faced with tremendous peril. Some of them are harassed. Many of them receive death threats, and I've read these death threats. They are in writing from the Taliban, and they basically delivered to the house by members of the Taliban who ride up, to the house on motorcycles with guys carrying guns, and deliver a notice saying that, the person, this unofficial government head letterhead saying, you have been marked. Basically, you've been marked as an enemy of the Islamic religion and the Taliban government, and you better take your life into your own hands, because no corner of the country is going to be safe for you, and you and your own family, we're going to avenge your actions on your own hide and your own blood, basically. So this is the situation, and when you see things like this against the faces of the people who are trying to get out of Afghanistan, it's really quite shocking. Families with small children who are caught in this, the persons who are most targeted are those who have helped the United States government trying to make the country into a democracy. And now, of course, the U.S. has abandoned them. And so this parole effort is an effort to get them here and safely. And I just want to emphasize that what I do cannot happen at all unless other people step forward and help. So for each Afghan person, a U.S. person has to step forward as a petitioner. This is a problem because the petitioner ordinarily has to pay $575 per Afghan person. So if there's a family of 5, you can imagine how expensive that is. Very few people want to do this for reasons. There's no guarantee that the application will be successful. So we're trying a way around this. There is another way where the petitioner, if the petitioner comes from a modest means, doesn't have much income, the petitioner can apply for a fee waiver, in which case there's no fee. And that's what we're trying to do. So people of modest means, people who are retired, people who are artists, people who don't have much income, please step forward with that effort. Or if you want to pay the fee, you can become the petitioner. And then there's the financial sponsor who's required to say that the Afghan person won't become a public charge. This scares a lot of people into not wanting to make this affirmation. But I will say that no cost is involved, first of all. Second of all, it's almost impossible that these people will become a public charge because they're, first of all, humanitarian parole is only for 1 year. And second of all, once the Afghan people are here, other agencies step forward to help them. So you would not be called upon to support. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that's it. Yeah. We had these are some slides of some refugees who I've helped. Just a few examples. Yep, the father of the family and his 2 children. There was a family of 5. We have 3 slides. Okay.
Afghanistan is very close to my heart, so that was really wonderful work you're doing. I'm going to be speaking very briefly, I'm sure you're all happy to hear that, on saving our democracy through the ability to vote. It's a slightly personal slant on this topic. Several years ago, Susan Lerner from, excuse me, Common Cause, a nonpartisan watchdog group based in Washington, D.C., came and spoke to a full house in this SAJ sanctuary. She spoke on the history of voting, voting laws, and the commitments needed to get out the vote. I consider myself a really informed person, but it was an all-around education and an eye-opener for me, and it urged me to become a voting activist. More recently, our synagogue membership, guided by the Social Concerns Committee, Sojac, and Rabbi Lauren, were involved in the 2020 presidential election and the Georgia recall election. Sending out cards, we sent out hundreds of cards to Black Georgia residents, providing useful information on getting to the polls and supplying local contact info if their voting efforts were being thwarted. Sending out postcards to people that I didn't know and would never meet was incredibly rewarding, and collectively made a huge difference on the voting results that day. Phone and text messaging, along with card writing, is now the national tool to get people to the polls. 2022, as has been said often today, will be a pivotal year with the upcoming November Senate election and the 2024 presidential election, as anti-voter laws, gerrymandering, and election sabotage is a given. This year, we will again work with Reclaim Our Vote and the Center for Common Ground to turn out the vote. I'm hoping that Eden will put up a couple of slides. The first one is an example of the card that Myra worked with recently, just to let you give you an idea of what the card is all about. So on one side is the address, on the other is a handwritten notice, handwritten for people to encourage them to vote and to give them information. The next slide is a list of the target states and dates that Sojac and other volunteers will be postcarding and phone and text banking. You don't have that one? Oh, darn. Okay, well, maybe we can somehow get this list. Yeah, we'll publicize it, but basically, the dates and throughout this coming year, the number of states and the dates that we will be working on. As Nancy said in her incredible tish this morning, the second plan, the social justice plan, is all about what we individually can do to make voting a very successful action in both of these elections. And I urge you to volunteer to get out the vote, because every effort, big and small, will help us protect our democracy. So please sign up. Even if you do very little, collectively, everything will make a huge difference. Thank you very much.
My name is Malcolm Spector, and I'm giving a report on the SAJ Environmental Project. In 2011, the SAJ Social Concerns Committee was looking for an environmental project. Amid the many worthy urban-oriented issues, I mentioned that if the SAJ wanted to adopt and maintain a section of hiking trail, I would be glad to lead that effort. It is perhaps not well known that there are over 2,000 miles of hiking trails within 2 hours' drive of New York City. Volunteers, both individuals and organizations, build and maintain these trails, most of which are in state parks or on other public lands. The volunteers are supervised by the New York-New Jersey Trail Conference, a 100-year-old environmental advocacy organization with over 100 member groups and 10,000 individual members. Some of these trails are neatly maintained, but others fall into neglect for a variety of reasons. I asked the Trail Conference to assign one of these orphan trails to the SAJ. They gave us a beauty, the Yellow Blaze Trail to Terrace Pond, a glacially sculpted lake surrounded by steep walls and dense forest. A favorite destination, always included in guidebooks, in Huawei State Park in the town of West Milford, New Jersey. The previous maintainer had fallen ill. After some years of neglect, the Trail Conference took it back and assigned it to us. SAJ's section runs through a dense forest of laurel, hemlock, and scrub oak. It crosses a babbling brook, climbs to higher ground, goes through a tunnel of rhododendron, and ends at a wetland where the beavers have created an eerie, beautiful environment. Our section is about 2 miles long. The highest point is 1,000 feet above sea level. During our first years, we worked on the trail 4 times in the spring and 4 times in the fall. We repainted the blazes, thanks to Francine, our resident artist. We cut back the encroaching undergrowth. We tried to eliminate a very prickly, invasive Japanese barberry and patches of poison ivy. Now that our section is in impeccable condition, we volunteer to work on nearby trails that are overgrown or orphaned. At a time when I thought my hiker days were largely over, the SAJ Trail Maintenance Project was a great gift to me. It got me back on the trail and provided a path to friendship and camaraderie with a wonderful band of SAJ brothers and sisters. We spend 4 to 6 long days together every year. We love our routine. Coffee and donuts on the way, clipping our trail, and a well-deserved ice cream or root beer float on the way back in warm weather. We make outdoor recreation more pleasant and safer for the hiking public. A poorly marked, overgrown trail puts hikers at risk if the weather suddenly changes, if hikers are caught in the darkness or are injured. Along with other volunteers, we strive to ensure that the trails and natural areas we share are sustainable and accessible to all who enjoy for generations to come. A few numbers to end. We have made 45 trips to our trail during our first decade. 24 different people have participated at least once. 15 have come back more than once, and 7 people have come back at least 10 times. We are entering our 12th year, and we're still going strong, and we would welcome any person who would like to come with us. There are a few slides that, if the person can run the slides quickly, gives a taste of what we're doing. This is all right, we're running them pretty quickly. This is our largest group. We had 7 people out that day. There we are again, clipping away. So on the right is a picture that Ruth Messenger took of the beaver dams, the eerie, beautiful environment where the beavers have raised the water level about 4 feet with a huge dam and created the kind of environment they like. On the left, you have laurel in bloom. Frequently in June when we go, the laurel is in bloom, such as that. Anything else? Next. All right, there's on the left you have Pam and Sheila right at the beaver dam with the wetland in the background. And on the right, in 2012, Hurricane Superstorm Sandy went through our area and knocked down a whole bunch of trees. The Trail Conference has a chainsaw crew, and I went out with them in February when they were clearing the very large blowdowns from our crew. So I think there's one more picture of the chainsaw crew after that. They're a pretty interesting bunch. That's them on the left. And there we are in June. Everything's very green, and we're trying to make sure that the trail is at least 4 feet wide. So sometimes we finish our work early, and when we do, we frequently take a bit of a trip, a bit of a hike just for pleasure. This last November, it had been very wet, but the day we went out, it wasn't so wet. We finished our work, and then we went over to the Pochuck Swamp, which was reliably swampy, and we got our feet wet walking on the Appalachian Trail through the Pochuck Swamp. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, it's very late, but thank you all. I thought we'd end with Malcolm, which was, it's so much more beautiful and cheerier than all the other talks. So I want to thank all of you. We will take maybe 2 questions or comments, but I think we've run out of time and we can save it for some of them for another time. Does anyone here have a Betsy?
This was absolutely inspiring and wonderful, and I can think of 3 activities that I intend to join and participate more. So I thank you.
Thank you. I second that. What I would like to know is if people are interested in signing up, how does one go about it? Are we contacted? Who should we contact?
You should contact me, and every single week there's something in the bulletin from Sojac, and it has my email, not my phone number there, but you can look, if you're as members can look it up in the directory. And every week we've been putting in an announcement about specific current activities. Peshkin's work has been publicized every week for the last, months, and other things that are going on, like the highest work that I just mentioned. And we love it. You can also get on the Sojac mailing list, even if you don't want to come to a meeting. I send out more frequent announcements to Sojac and friends, let's call it, so that you can hear everything. So we'd love to hear from you.
We can also send a specific follow-up, I think, with, like Amy's information and Malcolm, like individual projects where people might go directly to them. We could do that. We can plan that in the next week or 2.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there's the handout, which everyone should also take with you. Is that what you're saying, Nancy?
And it'll be in the bulletin this week.
Okay. A lot of information too, but we can do an email too, because that's probably as well very easy. We can use that as a basis. So I concur with the inspiration. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to Myra for your incredible leadership. And it's a true testament to this community, everything that is happening and that is going to continue to happen, and what we are doing is absolutely incredible. Just one, everyone say hi to Eden. Eden, wave your hand. Eden is our administrator for the 100th anniversary, and she's been an amazing addition just in 3 weeks or so since she's been with us. And I think my final announcement is just a reminder that the Voices of the SAJ is on Friday evening, and we're gonna sing a song to sing us out as you're getting your stuff and everything. We had hoped to include it in services, but wanted to make sure there was time. But it is an inspiration, an Israeli, somewhat modern Israeli song. Oh, Danielle?
I just want to give a shout out to Debbie for an amazing job today and leading 5 on work.
Yes, I did that earlier, but thank you. And I think this, if you have your hand out from services, Ani ve'ata, you and I will change the world. And that is very true here at SAJ, and we continue to that work.
Right. It's what the theme for many people who said it takes just one of us and then working together with one other person and then building the community, and all will follow. So that's what it says. You and I will change the world. You and I, by then, all will follow. Others, I have said it before, but it doesn't matter. You and I will change the world. So I learned this a long time ago, but it's a classic. Ani v'ata nishane et ha'olam. Ani v'ata az yavo kvar kulam. Amru et ze kodem lefanai, ze lo mishane. Lai lai lai. Ani v'ata nishane et ha'olam. Ani v'ata ננסה מההתחלה, יהיה לנו רע, אין דבר זה לא נורא. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, לא משנה, לי, אני ואתה נשנה את העולם.